Mr. Amir Jamil Abbasi, who is the partner and the head of audit at KPMG and has rich experience of dealing with financial services. And this is a topic that is closer to our heart as finance professionals. So let's hear Amir Saab, if you can come and share your thoughts.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored by ICAP and the PAIB to have been given this opportunity to make this presentation to this huge audience. I have never made a presentation before such a big audience, so forgive me if I'm a bit nervous or if it takes time for me to actually get a bit settled. But the thing is that I'm also honored to have the presence of such old chartered accountants, senior chartered accountants like Yusuf Adil Saab is there, Masood Ali Naqvi Saab is there, and then obviously the past presidents as well and the council members. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My topic is one of the three relating to the impact of CPEC on our economy. And we have chosen three sectors where we are going to focus on. First one was the hospitality. This one is the financial services sector. And obviously after Jose's presentation, all other presentations will be outshined now. And I don't think that we can match his kind of interest, or we can actually garner that kind of interest in our presentation. You might find my presentation a bit boring, but it is a longish presentation and it will actually help you get an idea about the impact of CPEC on the financial services. And I will also be covering the challenges and opportunities as well. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor provides an excellent opportunity to improve the economic and defense condition of Pakistan. And this is one of the policy initiatives that actually has attracted the attention of the policy makers in so much that no other policy initiative actually has. So you can see also in the press, we have a lot of coverage of CPEC. Every day you actually get to hear about CPEC. So before I talk about financial services, I will talk about overall CPEC overview as well. And since its announcement in July 2013, probably no policy initiative is receiving more attention in Pakistan than CPEC. Top political leadership of Pakistan has continuously and on many occasions indicated that this could be a game changer for our country. And also the Chinese government officials have said that this is a flagship project of the One Belt, One Road project of China. And it is the Chinese president's flagship project. CPEC is a Chinese president's flagship project. So the massive prospective benefits that the CPEC can bring to Pakistan are contingent to its actual implementation. So its implementation is very important. And there are serious hurdles to its implementation. So let me now go into my presentation. I think I should go into that round carpet, then it will become a dead presentation probably, right? So, talking about my agenda, I have an overview of the CPEC project in the current scenario of CPEC. So it is important to have context of the CPEC before we go into the financial services, so that it will be easier for us to understand that what is CPEC and how the financial services sector of Pakistan can benefit from the CPEC and what are the hurdles to that. And then obviously I'm going to talk about the current scenario and the future scenario of the financial services area, and which I have broken down into project financing, treasury and FX operations, regulatory impacts and people. And then I've talked about role of professional firms also. Although it is not directly related, but still, since we are all mostly chartered accountants or accountants, so the role of professional firms in the CPEC also probably merits some attention, so we can talk briefly about that as well. And then the CPEC challenges and opportunities, which you will find probably most interesting. I will try and actually accelerate this presentation because there is actually not much time. Actually, there has been a late start as well. So let me try and do a quick thing. As you are aware, that China has embarked on a One Belt and One Road project targeting to bring 65 countries and significant world population, which is about 60%. And this was announced by the President of China in 2013. And One Belt relates to the development of land route, and the One Road includes Maritime Silk Road, and Maritime Silk Road is basically the CPEC that we are talking about. Khurram just mentioned about Uber. So Uber is something relating to cars, and now we have One Belt and One Road, and the abbreviation of that is OBOR. So from Uber, we are going into OBOR. So we are actually coming up with new terminologies that we need to get familiar with in the next 15 years. Because this is the time that this project is supposed to go in. This is an overview of the CPEC project. I just want to actually give you an overview of OBOR also, that this is not just related to Pakistan. This is a global project that China has embarked into, and they have set up Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, Silk Road Fund as well, and they have put in about $100 billion into those two entities. And the overall projected outlay of this project is more than $4 trillion. So we are just a tiny bit of that, $51 billion. So $51 billion is there for CPEC, and this is then divided into infrastructure development, development of Gwadar and Gwadar Port, and then we have industrial and economic zones and industrial parks, and then energy projects. Now, energy projects have been included into CPEC, but technically CPEC should not include energy projects. CPEC is One Belt, One Road project. And then there are three phases of CPEC. First phase is supposed to run between 2015 to 2023, and then second phase up to 2025, and then the third and the final phase probably up to 2030. So when I actually, because I just want to tell you about the phases so that you can have an idea when I talk about the various phases in the later slides. Current scenario of CPEC in respect to financial services, work on phase 1 has commenced, and based on the current info during the phase 1, all projects either equity based or debt based are financed by the Chinese. So there is not much for the Pakistani banks as such. And the local banks in phase 1 are limited to probably the Pak Rupee component. There is some slight difference that I will talk about later, that some local banks, larger local banks, have some actually agreements with the ICBC, which is one of the banks which has been established in Pakistan. ICBC is the largest bank in China, and it has already started operations in Pakistan. The business projects currently continue to be negotiated on the government level, and there is no private sector involvement as such in terms of private sector to private sector interaction as such, as far as we are aware. Financial services perspective. Now, currently what is happening as far as banks is concerned is that one of the Pakistani banks is opening up a branch in China. And then a handful of commercial banks have established Chinese desk, and they have whereas few other banks are in the process of arranging the approvals for opening the representative offices. Pakistani banks, through their offices in China, are involved in limited kind of activities like guarantees, trade financing activities, or trade support or project financing. These are the type of services. And obviously we have these Chinese desks in Pakistani banks which have been set up. In addition to that, what some of the banks have done is they have actually designated some of the branches as CPEC branches. And what they have done is, symbolically what they have done is, that they have put the name of the bank in the Chinese language as well. So just to give an idea that this is a branch where you can basically deal with the CPEC related, maybe whenever in future it happens. So Chinese nationals have also been employed in many cases in these Chinese desks in Islamabad and in Karachi as well. Because you actually need Chinese people, because we don't have the language skills to communicate with the Chinese people. Then ICBC has already started its operations in Pakistan, and further another Chinese bank is in the process of obtaining regulatory approvals. So there are more Chinese banks coming in. One Pakistani bank is going into China, and let's hope that more banks are going into China. So there is more exchange of these banks' presences in both the countries. Now this future scenario, as far as project financing is concerned, I have had a lot of discussion with many banks, and they are generally very optimistic about their possibilities of their involvement and their potential share in the development projects that are going to come up under CPEC, particularly in the phase 2, not in phase 1. And Islamic banks are also gearing themselves to grab the opportunity to channelize their excess liquidity into innovative Islamic financing products. There was a seminar in IBA on Islamic banking relating to CPEC, and there one comment was made that since the OBOR, overall the Chinese project, is going to cover about 65 countries, so we will have 30 countries which are Islamic countries. So Islamic banks can have a very good opportunity of actually going out internationally as well into those Islamic countries, and to collaborate with the other Islamic banks to come up with various products like Ijara, for example, for the project financing. Major component obviously will come from Chinese banks. However, certain projects will still be financed by the Pakistani banks, and the spillover effect of CPEC also is there, where there will be investments, and there are being investments in cement, steel, and contracting and hospitality industry, and banks will have opportunities of financing such projects as well. This is the next slide on the future scenario of the project financing. Obviously, when you have project financing, the local banks have limited capital capacity, so you will need to consider syndicated loans or collaboration between banks to finance these projects once the opportunities come to the Pakistani banks. At the moment, what we are hearing is that equity is coming from the Chinese investor, and the debt also is coming from the Chinese investor. So there is limited opportunity for the Pakistani banks as such. So correct me if there is any banking colleague here who disagrees with this situation that I'm talking about, because I've had general discussions, so you may have a specific actually information on this particular area. One area obviously is the SME sector, where basically we need to focus on so that they can benefit from the CPEC projects, and also the insurance sector, because there will be more than $30 billion of projects which will need insurance. And there is, if the Pakistani insurance companies do get the opportunity of insuring these projects, then they can have significant increase in their premium income, and obviously the size of their financials and their profitability can increase. Now, future scenario. Obviously, when the local banks will be involved internationally with Chinese banks and regionally as well, so there will be need to develop products for forex and interest rate management. New products, especially derivatives, would need to be introduced. Financing in foreign currencies will involve separate risk. For example, when the repayment of principal and interest and the repatriation of profit is involved, then obviously the local banking channels will have to be used, so the banks will have to be geared towards that technologically and otherwise. And investment of Chinese in Pakistan Stock Exchange and Pakistani corporate sector is another aspect which we need to consider, from where the capital for the CPEC can be actually generated through the local Pakistani public. So in addition to the equity coming from outside. So that is also another possibility that we can consider. Because again, what I am talking about is future is we have very little information as to how the CPEC is ultimately going to pan out into the future. So this is all where there are opportunities for the local banks that I am talking about, all these things that they will need to actually consider. Then in terms of future scenario, we have to have increased regulatory compliances as well. We would need to consider the capital requirements as well as the regulatory compliances, need for better ADR, and then considering the global outlook, our regulators will need to align our reporting framework with globally accepted framework. This is very important. If we have to internationalize and globalize, our reporting framework will have to actually change and be in line with the IFRS and other international financial reporting standards. So this is something for the future, that we have to align ourselves globally so that our financial statements become more comparable. And then focus on increased financial integration and inclusion. There was one talk that the Deputy Governor of State Bank of Pakistan made, and one of his comments was that the inclusion, financial inclusion of the population in Pakistan is at the same level as it was in China in about 12 years back. So there is definitely a need for actually improving the financial integration and inclusion of Pakistani banks and the Pakistani public, so that we are able to compete with the Chinese financial sector and financial banks, so that we can have relationships which are on an equal basis, and then we can actually, which can be a win-win situation for both Pakistan and China. This is one of the most important aspects that we can talk about. Specialized expertise, everyone knows that would be needed, and it seems that most of the projects will be staffed by the Chinese techies, Chinese professionals, and Chinese laborers. There is even talk of Chinese prisoners being brought in to work as labor. This is just, I heard about it. I'm quoting someone, and I'm not saying it, but this is generally the model that they followed in other countries like continents like Africa as well. So one of the senior anchors of one of the channels told me that this is happening already at Gawada port at least. But I do not take any responsibility for this comment, but still I thought that I should let you know that how this thing could create problems for the country. Then management of language and cultural barriers. This is one of the most important issues which has actually resulted in little or no interaction between Pakistan and China in the sphere of financial services. We have only some Chinese desks or rep offices in China, and then some Chinese desks in Pakistan, but not more than that. And then there is a need, obviously, to actually make the workforce more diverse, leading to new cultural, which will lead to new cultural and social challenges. Further attention would also need to be given to the provincial sensitivities, which I will come in the challenges and opportunities. And then obviously there is, I'm sorry to say, there is a lack of transparency in respect to expectation that CPEC projects would be managed by Chinese skilled and specialized person. This aspect needs clarification. We need to know how much involvement of Pakistani professionals, Pakistani techies, Pakistani laborers will be there in these CPEC projects. So what is the benefit that we are going to get out of this CPEC project? Now, talking about professional services firms, this is one area where, at least for the larger professional firms, they have regular interaction with their counterparts in the Chinese offices, and there are no issues as far as expertise in specialized areas is concerned. For example, if they want any work being done in Pakistan, they can obviously contact their counterpart office here, and they can easily carry out the work on their behalf and then submit the report to them or whatever. And this is already happening with most of the firms, and this is something which is actually well established, and there are probably no issues as such. How much time? 2 to 3 minutes. Oh no. I'll actually now come to quickly to the challenges and opportunities. I hope you are able to read in the back, or should I quickly? But the people in the back may not be able to. But anyway, China has completed the economic and environmental feasibilities. However, we have limited insight of such feasibilities conducted by Pakistan Environmental Impact Assessment. So this is one area we don't have any knowledge about. We know that China has done these things, but on our side we are not clear. Then there is lack of transparency in respect to borrowing cost on loans and rate of return on equity. Projects financed by Chinese investors, news reports indicate rate of return on equity as high as 34% or 27%, and then the borrowing cost including like 4.5% above LIBOR and 7% insurance premium going up to 13%, which actually creates a lot of doubt in the mind as to how the future repayments of these loans and the repatriation of profit will take place. So this is one important area where we need clarity, and it is not clear how Pakistan will benefit in respect of the revenues of transportation, cess, etc. An estimate in press, interestingly, was that we are going to earn about $70 billion per annum. So I would say it's totally unbelievable. It's just not possible. If it were to happen, then we could overnight become a developed country. So that is there. Then, but there is no transparency in this respect. We don't know whether we are going to get any transit fee at all or what. Maybe our friend on the logistics may be able to throw some light on this. Then the perception of deprivation of smaller provinces, if the promised and perceived benefits of CPEC to the population are not realized, and the need for connectivity between local communities and nearby economic zones to benefit the local population. This is very important, because there has been a lot of controversy, as you are aware, between the various provinces about the routes. There are 3 routes, obviously, but there had been a lot of to and fro in this respect, and then there are a lot of areas in KPK and Balochistan which are very deprived zones. So if there are going to be industrial zones or industrial parks, the local communities need to connect with those so that they can benefit out of those CPEC projects. So obviously understandably that when we hear that they are going to be owned by the Chinese, they are being offered high returns, then how are they going to get benefit? The local population will get the benefit. Is there any regulation relating to that? So this is one important challenge that I thought that I should bring to your attention. I'll now come up to the other challenges also. This presentations will be available to you anyway, so I'll just come to some of the opportunities as well, some important opportunities. CPEC has the potential to change the economic geography of Pakistan. It is a potential game changer for the country, but obviously with certain caveats. And infrastructure development would result in a boost for private sector and industry and would benefit the various segments like cement, construction and tourism, etc. Obviously, we will have lots of, and then the potential to generate significant revenues for government and banking sector will be there. Then minimize electricity deficiency to zero and potential for significant new employment opportunities. So when you have the deficit on electricity brought to zero, a lot of industrial activity will increase. So hopefully it will have a positive impact on our GDP. And then increased presence of Chinese banks and expansion of foreign banks obviously will benefit our banking sector as well. So they will be able to actually exchange ideas with them and will be able to bring their technological development and digital transformation to their level over a period of time. If the Pakistani banks grab the opportunity proactively, then CPEC can be a major driver of their growth over the next medium to long term. And there is some indication or estimation that in the next 5 to 10 years, their profitability might double or even go more. But again, it is dependent on their involvement in the CPEC projects financing. And I understand that at least the larger banks have already entered into various agreements with the ICBC particularly, which is there. And they're actually working with them in using the Pakistani banks. So hopefully the Pakistani banks will have these opportunities. Enhanced security due to mutual defense cooperation with China, that is very important, because the previous presenter, Mr. Helmut, he did mention that security is a major issue. So if the Chinese are coming into Pakistan, then obviously they will take care, and obviously we have a large number of armed forces which are being deputed for the security of the whole CPEC. So the security situation in the country has improved, and CPEC is a testament to that. And it will further improve as the CPEC projects continue to actually advance in the next 10 to 15 years. Now I've given some figures about the future projections about the amount of financing that the local banks will be able to do, which will be in the region of $5 to $12 billion. So if those actually type of project financing realize, then obviously it will be good for the local banking industry. So finally, I would like to just end with a comment that the bottom line is that CPEC has the potential to benefit whole economy and the financial sector. However, we need more information to understand how this vision will be realized. और आखिर में उर्दू में जिंदगी चाइनीज फिल्म की तरह है, हो गई है, बस देख रहे हैं लेकिन समझ नहीं आ रही। थैंक यू वेरी मच।